Okay, so before we get started, I do have to put out a little something. For those of you that are really big in the visual novel scene, Yang Yang Mobile, I believe the company is called, they're the company who made the letter. They started a Kickstarter yesterday for their newest game, something, I think it's Love Esquire, something like that. So for those of you expecting an awesome horror game, you're just as disappointed as I am. And if you're wondering why I'm putting the shout out here of all places instead of just doing a random letter thing, Leanna's voice actress, Amanda Lee, and Amelia's voice actress, Natalie Hoover, are both playing characters in the game. So if you want to hear those voice actresses play different character types, then there you go. But without further ado, let's just jump into this. As we walk, another ominous rumble sends butterflies to my stomach. I can't shake off the feeling that we are literally walking into a fire. I glance at the others who seem unfazed. Guess it's just me. Pushing my insecurities down, I silently follow the group towards the temple. Just as Elder Isom noted, the temple is a short walk out of the village on a well-worn dirt path. The road is mostly empty, with only one or two travelers coming back towards the village. The temple is an open structure with a roaring fire in the middle of a grand hall. High columns with flames carved into them hold up the building. Adorning the stone walls are beautiful tiled mosaics. There's one wall with some strange symbols scratched on them. They're very faded, and I have to squint to make it out. From what I can make out, 4 symbols surround a darkness in a square, with a line of fire enclosing the perimeter, trapping the darkness in the center. Wonder what this is. Amelia glances over, then peers at the carving.
Those symbols represent each of the magical elements.
She points to each one.
There is fire, water, earth, and wind.
Then she points to the center.
And that is shadow.
I've never considered shadow an element before.
It is one of the elemental magics.
Kara, Zack, and Leanne have already moved on, so the rest of us hustle to catch up. Besides us, the only other people in the temple are the monks who care for it. They're dressed in woven red robes in the same open and loose style as the villagers from Evermist. Quietly, they shuffle back and forth, sweeping the floors or relighting any of the smaller fires which have burned low.
Hi.
The Pongo looks around in wonder and reverence. At the sight of the giant flame, he squeaks and hops up on me, claiming his spot on my shoulder. Kara bows briefly before the large flame, then leads us to the back of the chamber and stops in front of an empty wall.
We're here!
Zack sighs. Secret passage. Kara might be a little out there, but I don't get the impression that she's stupid. There must be more to the wall than first meets the eye. Is there a mechanism hidden somewhere that triggers a doorway? Kara's eyes glitter.
Bingo!
With her gaze fixed on us, Kara pushes down a brick and a segment of the wall pushes in and swings open. She waves at the opening with a flourish.
Ta-da!
How did you know which brick to push in?
It usually depends, but in this case, there's one brick that sticks out slightly more than the others. If you weren't looking for it, you won't see it.
She heads through the opening and pushes the wall closed behind us. Then she leads us down a winding stone stairway, which ends at the beginning of a narrow passage. We file in behind her as she carefully picks her way down the hall. It's a very plain stone hallway with wall sconces lighting the way. I look down at my feet and notice a brick with an X marked on it. No thank you. I have a feeling this X didn't make its way onto the stone by itself. I better not touch it. Gingerly, I step around the brick. A few feet away, I spot another X. Is anyone else seeing these random X's? Kara glances back.
I should hope so. I left those there so as not to set off the same traps again.
Makes sense. We resume walking. The deeper we travel, the more X's I notice. Wow, there are a lot of traps in here. Zack pauses in front of a corridor where the walls are covered in X's.
Why are there so many X's on this wall?
Kara looks down the same passageway.
Oh, it's a 2-part trap.
She points to a stone on the ground with the same X marking.
Basically, if you step on the ground stone, it triggers thick bars to shoot out from all the X's in the wall and block the path.
That doesn't sound too bad.
Only if you know how to limbo. The bars have something keeping them hot and will burn you if you touch it.
Okay, that sounds worse.
And you were able to cross that?
Kara winks.
I am very limber.
I expected Zack to brush off her comment like he brushed off every other girl, but he actually looks impressed. Amelia looks between Zack and Kara.
Based on the dilation of Zack's pupils, it appears that Kara's flexibility is attractive to him.
Zack is taken aback.
I was just thinking that it's a useful skill set to have.
Kira has a mischievous glint in her eyes.
Useful skill set to have. In what context?
Zack frowns.
For scouting and navigating. You've done a thorough job mapping this place out and marking the traps.
Leanna looks amused.
Zack, was that a compliment?
He glares at Leanna.
No, an observation.
Kira smiles playfully.
Then thank you for the observation.
Zack falls into silence before turning away. I think that's the most I've ever heard him talk in a 30-second span. We continue through the tunnels. Eventually, she stops in front of another well of fire in the middle of the hall.
The barrier's here.
She gestures at the swirling metallic wall behind the well. The way that it glitters in wisps and curls almost looks like a fire. Leanna and Amelia step closer and inch their hands in front of them before gingerly touching the barrier.
It's surprisingly solid for something that looks so gaseous. Maybe there's some wind magic interwoven with whatever other magic is here.
The Pongo hops forward with stars in his eyes.
Hi.
He dashes straight for the barrier.
Pongo, wait!
I stretch out my arm and race after him. Pongo, no! Instead of running into a wall, the Pongo passes straight through and out of sight. Stay calm. Remember, do not panic. Leanna gasps and rushes to the wall.
Pongo? Oh no! What if something happens to him?
I step over and put a hand on her shoulder to calm her down. He is a scrappy and resourceful Pongo. I'm sure he'll be okay.
I suppose so.
Leanna bites her lip and stares anxiously at the barrier.
Pongo. Hi?
A blue head pops out of the barrier. What? He hops the rest of the way out.
Boy, boy.
Leanna scoops him up in a hug.
Pongo, you're back safe. Boy.
After a second, the Pongo wiggles out of her arms and rushes back over to me. Leanna pouts, then refocuses on the barrier. Amelia places both of her hands back on the barrier while Leanna holds out her manipulator.
Whatever is beyond this wall hosts a plethora of energy.
Leanna nods.
My manipulator confirms that. No wonder the Pongo ran in there.
Zack continues to hang back and observe, but Kira steps closer to the barrier.
But how did he even pass through?
Leanna shrugs. Amelia continues studying the wall, moving her hands up and down.
I do not recognize this magic.
She frowns, deeply disturbed.
Is there anything you can do to break it?
Let's see.
Leanna and Amelia both put their hands on the barrier, their manipulators glowing. They each transmit pulses of magic which disperse across the surface in a shimmering wave. I think they're trying to create stress fractures to crack the wall. After a few tries, Leanna sighs in frustration, then steps back.
Amelia, stand back.
She wordlessly obeys. Leanna gathers energy at her gauntlet and strikes the barrier with an empowered strike. Suddenly, golden lettering forms on the barrier. Absolve your world to enter mine. What does that mean? No one answers. Amelia steps forward and focuses on the well of flickering flame.
If I am interpreting this message correctly, we must part with our most precious possession, our world, and throw it in the fire.
Leanna nods thoughtfully.
Kind of like we're freeing ourselves.
Kira's face drains of color and she clutches at her pack.
Are you sure?
Yes,
We stand around awkwardly until Leanna clears her throat.
If that's what we need to do, then it seems easy enough. I'll go first.
Actually, let me go first. I'm a professional. We're doing this for me. I should be the one to go first. Leanna blinks, but I step up to the fire before she can object. What do I choose? Today is indeed a black day. I fish in my pockets and grab my wallet. My entire identity is in here, my license, student ID, and credit cards. The thought of parting with it makes my chest hurt. Reluctantly, I toss it into the fire and watch the flames lap it up. Then I steel my resolve and slowly step forward. As I cross through, I feel the tingle of energy and hear the crackle of electricity. There's a bright light blinding my vision, and I have a flashback of my crossing to Terra. My foot lands on solid ground. I pass through the barrier unharmed. Gradually, my eyes adjust to the dim light, and I see that I'm in a cozy room. In the middle of the room is a fox, who swishes its tail as it observes me. Beside it is a beautiful woman with flaming red hair. Her delicate hand rests atop the fox's head. As I look her over, her gaze lands on me. Who are you? The woman blinks at me, then smiles. For a second, I think I see the flames lighting the room flicker, and a warmth permeates my body. It's pleasant, like an embrace. Although she holds my gaze, she doesn't speak. How did you get in here? Again, she remains silent, but this time she takes a step closer.
Who are you talking to?
Huh? I peek behind the woman and see Zack stand with an eyebrow raised and his arms crossed. The rest of my companions pause in their inspection of the room and stare at me. Kara stands beside an altar while Amelia and Leanna are both kneeling by the fox. The fox accepts their attention, rhythmically swishing its tail, but otherwise makes no move to respond. Instead, it fixes its attention on me.
Are you talking to the fox?
No? The woman between me and you. I don't think they can see her. I'll go with this one. I fall silent as the group casts me worried glances.
Who exactly are you seeing?
There's a woman dressed in red, and she's kind of flamey, and she's standing right there with her pet fox. Her pet firefox. Leanna looks towards the fox, but her eyes glaze right over the woman. She furrows her brows, concerned.
Okay.
Her voice is gentle, like she doesn't want to spook me. None of you guys can see her? The group collectively shakes their heads. I don't know why you guys can't see her, but I promise you, she's there.
Boy!
The pongo hops out from behind my legs. He first examines the one with partial interest, then he stares in wonder at the fox.
Boy?
The fox cocks his head to the side and observes the pongo. The pongo perks up and cautiously bounces forward. He pauses right before the fox. The fox's nose wiggles as it sniffs at the pongo. Then it swishes its tail and the pongo squeaks before running back behind my legs.
Boy!
Wait, do you see her too?
Boy!
The woman giggles at the pongo and gently pats his head. He shivers happily at her touch. Then she straightens up and takes a step closer. Her feet don't touch the ground, her skirt floats ethereally behind her. Instinctively, I back away.
What's going on?
She's getting closer. A lot closer. She pauses once she draws near and touches her palm to my forehead. A pulse of warmth flows through me before she retracts her hand. As if something inside me clicked open, I feel invigorated with restored strength. The stronger I feel, the more translucent the woman becomes. Soon she disappears. The pongo stares at me with renewed interest. Reminds me of that same look he gave me when we first met. He licks his lips. Don't even think about it.
Boy!
The pongo pouts and lets out a sad sigh. Kara waves her hands in front of my face.
Hey, are you okay? You kind of zoned out there for a second.
I think I'm fine.
What happened?
Not too sure.
Where's the woman now?
Actually, she's gone. Amelia reacts to my words by playing with her bracelets. She holds her manipulator up to me.
Curious. I may have a theory.
What is it?
All the energy which had accumulated here has now gathered within you.
I blink as it takes me a minute to register what she just said. Wait, I absorbed the energy? That can't be right.
As I mentioned, it is merely a theory.
Leanna looks intrigued.
How is that possible?
I don't know. I felt it after she touched me. Leanna's eyes widen.
I wouldn't phrase it like that.
Not in a weird way. She just touched my forehead and suddenly I felt a rush of energy. Amelia stares hard at me. Why are you looking at me like that?
I am merely anticipating the imminent reaction.
Reaction to what?
The high concentration of energy you just absorbed. The human body was not meant to process such large quantities of energy. At least, that has certainly been the trend with someone from Terra.
Amelia's gaze bores into me as she emphasizes the word Terra. Then she looks back down at her manipulator.
Although, 2 minutes have passed, and there seems to be no sign of an adverse reaction.
Why does she sound so disappointed? Suddenly, Kara squeals as she gingerly picks up a rusty coin out of the remains of a leather satchel.
This is a genuine Vestin coin!
Zack glances at the coin, folds his arms, clearly unimpressed.
How much could a rusted out, dated coin be worth?
About a few hundred gold pieces.
Zack's demeanor instantly changes.
You don't say.
Kara smoothly pockets the satchel as Zack covertly searches the room. As Kara finishes up her inspection of the room, Leanna looks around.
Well, since we found what we came for, we should head back.
Kara nods and leads the way out. As we leave the room, we notice the fire, which had previously glowed from the barrier, is now gone, but all of our items are still intact. Hey, nothing was burned in here.
Curious. Then it can be assumed that the purpose of this trial was not to destroy our possessions, but to test our willingness to sacrifice.
Kara happily scoops out her coin purse.
I'm not complaining.
Leanna smiles in relief as she reaches in and quickly collects what looks to be a ring attached to a thin chain.
Let's keep going.
The rest of us snatch up our items and continue back out of the corridor. The trek out of the temple is a lot faster and easier than the trek in, mostly because there are no more obstacles to stop us. We pop out of the same hidden wall in which we entered. Just as before, the main ceremonial hall is empty. We wave goodbye to the couple of monks sweeping the entryway, then begin the walk back to the village. So, who are the Vestans? I fall in step with Kara. So, who exactly were the Vestans?
They were the original tribe of Ember Mist, and the initial keepers of the Fire Temple.
Did they build the temple? Kara shrugs.
It depends on who you ask. Some experts believe they did. Others think the temple was already there by the time the Vestans came about.
Interesting. Now I'm curious. How did you get into treasure hunting? She pauses just a little too long before flashing me her usual cheerful grin.
I just sort of fell into it, honestly. Treasure hunting naturally fit into my nomadic lifestyle.
Where did you learn all the history to even identify relics?
You'd be surprised how much you pick up along the way, especially after you realize what a lucrative business this can be.
So, you're just in it for the money?
I didn't say that. I'll admit that at first I was just in it for the money. But the more I learned about the ancient people of Asaria, the more invested I became in the history of each relic I found. I started to find myself daydreaming about who might have used the items I found. What kind of person were they? Did they cherish this item, or was it just another piece of their ever-growing collection of stuff?
You're more than meets the eye. That's actually kind of nice. I had no idea Kara had this side to her. That's surprisingly deep. Kara raises an eyebrow.
I'm full of layers.
I look her up and down and take in her barely there attire. Not from what I can see. She smirks.
Metaphorically speaking.
Right. So, let's talk to Amelia. I approach Amelia. So, that theory that you mentioned in the temple about the woman, what was it? Amelia glances at me.
Given the location and circumstances previously described by Elder Issam, my estimation is that the unknown woman you encountered was a projected image of the fire elemental. Of course, as I could not observe her myself, I cannot be certain.
Do you think that's why she wouldn't talk back? Also why she just didn't show up in person?
The amount of energy
why
needed
wouldn't
to
she?
sustain just an appearance of the elemental would have drained the temple completely. There would have been no energy left for her to give to you.
Is that why she disappeared right after?
The depletion of energy in the temple would have meant she'd no longer be sustained in this world.
Amelia looks thoughtful.
Although, it is quite unusual that she would have you absorb the energy to begin with.
I see. Sad part is, due to the way the character's a deadpan, the pun would probably go over her head. I will do it. No wonder she was so hot. That explains why she was so hot. Amelia looks at me curiously.
I assume, as the elemental of fire, it would only be appropriate that her being is imbued with the essence of her element. Naturally, that must mean her touch was hotter than average.
It certainly got the blood rushing, if you know what I mean. She stares straight at me.
I do not. Please elaborate.
This is awkward. She said when she touched me, suddenly all that energy rushed in and definitely got the adrenaline going.
Yes, I suppose that would happen.
She looks thoughtful.
Still, it is quite perplexing that she would only reveal herself to you.
Maybe she doesn't like you guys. It's not just me, the Pongos are too, I think. He didn't really make it clear if he was seeing her or just the fox thing.
The Guardian.
Huh?
The fox would be the guardian of the fire temple. Each temple has its own guardian who protects it.
So, how come the Guardian didn't attack us for breaking into the temple?
We did not break in. The guardian enforces the trial in the temple. Only those who are able to complete the trials are welcome into the temple.
In this case, that magical fire we had to put our stuff in? Amelia nods, still deep in thought. Are you still trying to figure out why no one else could see the elemental? She nods again. Any theories?
As of now, I do not have one. But perhaps after some further research...
Her voice trails off as she falls back into deep thought. Kara, Zack, and Amelia lead the way to Embermist while I lag behind. The Pongo sits on my head. Leanne notices my absence and falls into step with me. She pats the Pongo, who ignores her, still too focused on the energy around me. Leanna pouts, then shakes away the Pongo's disregardance of her and focuses her attention on me.
Something on your mind?
I drop my voice low so the others can't hear me. Now that I've collected the energy from the temple, that means I can try to create a temporal rift and go back home, right? Kara stops and whirls around to face us. Zack and Amelia stop with her.
Pardon me, you were speaking very softly and it was a little hard to hear, but it sounded like you just said you need to open a temporal rift to go back home? But that can't be right, can it?
Geez, this woman's got some supersonic hearing. I glance at Leanna, who looks alarmed. About that. Kara's smile falters in my hesitance, but Amelia looks excited.
I knew it! My hypothesis is correct!
Hypothesis? What hypothesis?
My hypothesis that he is from a parallel world.
Leanna's eyes grow wide and she forces a panicked smile.
I think all this parallel world and temporal rift talk has been getting to you. I mean, Elder Isum said it's impossible.
He has already admitted it.
What? Leanna and I have been careful not to say anything. When?
The day of our acquaintance.
I rack my brain, but don't remember bringing that up around Amelia.
You sought out Professor Xavier's guidance, and after he imparted his advice, you and Leanna had a brief discussion in which you mentioned that what he had suggested was exactly what happened to you. Thus began my hypothesis that you arrived from a parallel world.
Leanna looks at me, unsure how to react. What is up with all these eavesdroppers? I'm trying to remember what I did last time. I probably should check these videos to do a different thing, but... We'll do it. What is up with all these eavesdroppers? Does nobody understand the word privacy around here? You all have a problem with eavesdropping.
It's not eavesdropping if you're speaking loud enough for me to hear.
Do not change the subject at hand.
Leanna sighs.
She already knows.
Not from Terra, huh?
Zack looks me up and down and nods to himself.
That's a lot better than the alternative.
What's the alternative?
That you might be... unique.
Zack!
He shrugs.
He didn't even know what a discharger was. At least if he's from another world, that explains why he didn't know these things.
And by unique, he means some sort of degree of mentally challenged, in case you didn't pick that up. Kara looks skeptical.
How did he get here?
There have been unexplainably high concentrations of energy popping up throughout Isaria, and he happened to show up at one of those areas. We went to the Mage Academy to get some answers, and that's how we came up with the possibility that the high energy readings were temporal rifts, and somehow he had traveled through one. Why or how those rifts were even opened, we still don't know.
But if they're the only way for me to get back home, then I have to try to open one. Kara shrugs.
Let's just make sure you attempt to open one far away from where I'm standing.
That might be tricky considering no one knows how to open one. We may need to talk to Elder Isum.
That won't be necessary. I know how to do so already.
We all stare at her. How do you know that?
The directions are located in Elder Isum's old research notes, which I had gathered from the Academy. The spell itself is a simple conjuration, which even an amateur could do.
An amateur can open a temporal rift? Then why isn't everyone doing it?
The impossibility of the spell comes from the fact that the human body cannot manipulate the amount of energy needed for it.
She pauses, then points to me.
He may be an exception.
I squirm slightly as their gazes fall on me.
Given that you have absorbed energy directly from the temple, which should also be an impossibility, I must assume that there is something within you which can possess the high amount of magic without suffering consequences. Perhaps it is a skill which you acquired from your world.
My world doesn't have magic. Amelia blinks.
Regardless, only a short amount of time has passed. There is plenty of time for you to still internally combust.
A wave of unease makes my stomach queasy. Maybe I should open up this rift now before that has a chance to happen. Amelia grins with excitement.
I concur with that suggestion.
That may be the best now that you have the magic.
Zack shrugs and Kira takes a look at her open surroundings.
Maybe we should first look for a spot with a bit more cover. We don't want to be opening up rifts on an open pathway.
Good point.
There was some tree cover towards the west.
We mumble our affirmations and follow Zack towards the trees. We settle into the grove of trees. Both Leanna and Amelia stand on either side of me. Zack selects a tree far enough away to not be affected by any stray magic, but close enough to get a good view of what's going on. Kara, on the other hand, hangs back towards the outskirts of the trees. Zack looks back at her, an amused smile on his lips.
You'll miss the show from back there. You sure you don't want to come any closer?
Kara's voice is distant.
Yep.
There's a bit of movement as she takes another step behind a tree. Kara, hold my hand. There's no way she can see anything from there. I can barely see her. I take a few steps closer to Kara.
Stop right there.
But you can't see anything from there.
On the contrary, I can see all I need from here.
She can at least see if other people will stumble upon us from there.
Oh, yeah, a lookout. That's exactly what I meant.
I'm sure it has nothing to do with her wanting to stay out of the splash zone.
Leanna furrows her brow.
Temporal rifts don't splash.
No, but people do.
Zack!
He looks innocent.
What?
Leanna frowns. Amelia studies the notes, then nods to herself and snaps the book shut.
The casting is quite simple. It is the same technique as any other cast.
Leanna looks at me.
Are you ready?
I nod. Amelia glances at my stance, then frowns.
Your stance is incorrect. Straighten your spine.
I lengthen my spine and stand as straight as I can.
Now you are too tense. Keep yourself relaxed, but do not slump.
Okay. I release some of the tension in my back. She's about to speak again, but Leanna gently pulls Amelia to the side.
Okay, I think he gets it.
She steps in front of me and gives me an encouraging smile.
Your stance is fine. Just remember to raise your arms in front of you.
I do as she says, and she nods.
Now, the actual casting part is gonna sound tricky. You'll need to focus your mind on the spell you want to cast.
So I should just think about temporal rifts?
Yes, but you need to connect that thought with the magical energy. Clear your mind of every thought.
I close my eyes and push away all of my doubts and confusion and focus on Leanna's voice.
Now, think about the rift that you wish to create.
I imagine tearing a hole in the fabric of reality. I don't actually know what a rift would look or feel like. All I remember is the bright light. Should I focus on that light?
At the same time, sense for the magic within you.
I try to sense for any kind of magic, but nothing feels out of the ordinary. How do I know where the magic is?
It'll feel like a tendril or willing warmth. When you find it, reach out for it and grab hold. The magic is eager to be used and will latch on.
So I'll do as she says. This is so abstract, but I know I can do it. I just have to focus. I turn within and regulate my breathing. This sounds very similar to meditation, so perhaps using the same technique will yield success. As my breathing becomes slow and steady, I open my senses for any indication of another presence.
Once you find the magic, connect your thoughts of the rift with the magic, and then channel both the magic and the thoughts through your hands to cast it in the open.
I continue sensing, hoping to find even a hint of warmth. But how do I know if it's just my own warmth or the magic? Sweat beads on my temples as I strain to cast, but nothing happens. Eventually my arms grow weary and my mind is exhausted. I decompress with a sigh. It didn't work.
It's okay, we can try again. People aren't usually able to cast on their first try.
I mentally groan. The idea of doing all that again does not thrill me. There must still be something I'm missing.
It just takes some getting used to. Plus, you're trying to cast without a manipulator.
Oh yeah, both you and Amelia use manipulators to cast. Maybe that's why I wasn't able to do it.
Well, the manipulator's function is to house the energy source for us to cast with. Technically, because you already have the energy within you, you shouldn't need a manipulator.
Oh,
But this is all theory anyway. It may be easier trying to cast using a crystal, especially for a first-time caster.
Regardless, there could be a multitude of factors for why this attempt was not successful. One for which could be as simple as the fact that you still did not possess enough energy to open the rift.
Shouldn't the temple have had enough?
Theoretically, perhaps, but a significant portion of the energy was already being used to sustain the elemental's image. She was able to transfer what was left of the energy to you, which from my readings was only 20% of the total energy in the temple when we started.
So I don't think she said theoretically there.
Theoretically, perhaps, but
Theoretically?
a significant portion of...
Suddenly Kara is staying right beside us, as cheerful as ever.
That sounds like you all still need to explore some more temples.
I jump at her presence. Even Leanne and Amelia seem surprised to see her so close. Only Zack is unaffected. How'd you get here so fast? She grins at me.
Am I wrong?
The Pongo jumps out of Kara's arms and hops into mine.
Boy, boy!
I pat him on the head and he wiggles contentedly, licking the air around me.
So it could be that he doesn't know how to cast, or that he doesn't have enough energy.
Sure, but what does that mean for you all in terms of next steps? Are you going to hang out in Ember Mist until he learns how to cast?
It could take him weeks before he can even cast the simplest of spells. That is quite a long time to rely on someone else's hospitality.
It sounds like it would still be in your best interest to visit at least one more temple just to be sure you have enough energy. You can teach him how to cast on the way, so by the time he gets there, he'll be ready to go.
Leanna looks thoughtful.
That does seem like the better option than the alternative.
If it's the fastest way to get me back home, then I'm not opposed to having all of our bases covered. Amelia nods.
That is the most efficient course of action. If we can mitigate any uncertain factors, then we can pinpoint where the weakness is and adjust accordingly for a successful cast. The research this will provide will be very informative.
Hearing Amelia's affirmation, Zack shrugs.
Since I'm here to protect Amelia, I go where she goes.
Kara smiles broadly and slings her arms around Zack and Amelia, much to their dismay.
Great. Then our arrangement is still on.
Hey!
Zack moves out of Kara's grasp. She smirks.
Most men would be thrilled to have a pretty woman hug them. Right, Amelia?
That is correct. A healthy physique is inherently attractive for potential mates.
Kara lets go and starts to lead the way out of the forest.
We should spend the night in Ember Mist. We can plan our next steps there.
Once we are in agreement, we follow Kara back to Embermist. Upon arriving, we head to the inn.
We can spend the night here. I'll meet you back down in the lobby in a few minutes.
So does anyone else find it odd that a isolated village has an inn? She ventures upstairs while we secure 2 rooms with the innkeeper. As we receive our keys, Amelia excuses herself.
I wish to seek an audience with Elder Isum and continue our discussion. I would be remiss to let such an opportunity pass.
Seems like a good guy, but maybe we keep the fact that I'm not from here a secret.
Yes, that is something in which we are in agreement.
Okay. She nods and leaves the inn. The decor of the inn is very similar to Elder Isom's hut. Pillows and rugs line the ground as a few people sit cross-legged in front of the fire. A few tables line the other side of the lobby, all of which are empty. In fact, aside from the couple people chatting by the fire, this place is very empty. Once I sit down, I feel a fatigue pass over me, but I try to shake it off. I guess they don't see too many visitors here.
For a city that's supposed to be so secret, that's not surprising. It's more surprising that they have an inn.
Thank you. I nod and stifle a yawn. We sit at a table as Zack orders us dinner. After a few minutes, Kara returns.
Where's Amelia?
She went to speak with Elder Isom. She nods. My eyelids droop and I'm stifling yawns every few minutes. My limbs feel like leaded weights, and it's taking all my effort to sit upright. After I let out a wide yawn, Leanna glances over at me.
Maybe you should go to bed. We're winding down anyway, so it'd be a good idea to get some rest.
I nod blearily. That sounds really good right now. Guess absorbing all that energy really takes it out of you, huh? Lena smiles at my joke.
It would seem so.
Regardless, I'm grateful for the excuse to leave. I trot upstairs and fumble with the key before opening the door. Then I fall into one of the twin cots and pass out as soon as my head hits the pillow. 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」
.
light filters through the window and gently pulls me out of my slumber. Slowly, I push myself up in the bed and glance over to see Zack strapping on his dischargers. He notices me sit up.
Hey,
Hey,
we're meeting downstairs in a few minutes.
alright. As Zack finishes gathering his things, I begin to get ready to go downstairs. The group gathers down in the lobby. I greet everyone and turn to Amelia. How was your chat with Elder Isom yesterday?
We had a very productive discussion. In fact, Elder Isom shared more of his journals with me.
She indicates the scrolls in her arms. Wow, he just gave those to you?
No, these are copies I wrote to bring back with me to the academy.
We stare at Amelia. She spent all night writing those.
That's a lot of dedication.
Amelia continues.
Regardless, we discussed more on the theory of temporal rifts in the elementals, which has only strengthened my concern that we do not have enough energy.
Then that definitely means we need to seek out another temple.
Do we have a lead on where to go?
Elder Isom, through his research into the elements, did mention that historically, the Gaians, the people who originally worshipped the Earth Elemental, used to reside in the central woodlands of Asaria, the Kali. The people who worshipped the Wind Elemental resided in the northern aerial plains. Therefore, it is most logical that the Earth and Wind Temple will be located in those respective regions.
What about the Water or Shadow Temple? She shakes her head.
The Aquarians, those who worshipped the Water Elemental, depended heavily on the seas. As such, Elder Isom was unable to pinpoint where the cultural hub of their society might have been. As for Shadow, that is a complete unknown.
If the Earth Temple is somewhere centrally located, then that would be the temple closest to us.
Leanna nods.
The fastest way back will be to take the crystal rail, so we should return to Bazada.
With our next course of action in place, we finish up at the inn and get ready to depart. Elder Isom sees us off, much to the delight of Amelia. We retreat back through the forest. Leanna stays by my side the whole way through, still unsettled by the forest. Luckily, nothing unfavorable happens, and we quickly make it through. As we return to Bazada, I can hear the raucous sounds of the marketplace city long before I can see it. We pass through the familiar city gates and return to the early bustle of the city.
Let's pause here and take a moment to restock. There are a few items I'd like to pick up, which may be helpful.
Good idea. Why don't we all make sure we have everything we need, and then meet at the crystal rail station?
We all agree and split up. I spend some time browsing through the stalls again. Afterwards, I head over to the station to meet back up with the group. I'm the first to arrive at the station, but Kara shows up only a few minutes later. As the rest of the team gradually trickles in, Kara appears at the station list.
The end of the line is Stonecrest, so that's where we should go. Once we arrive there, I'll scout around and find our next course of action.
We want to reach as close to Central as possible, so traveling to the end of the crystal rail is a good first step.
Once we had a semblance of a plan put together, we purchased our tickets. After the train pulls into the station, we all board and begin our journey. After traveling on the train for 2 days, we finally arrive in the city.